Just start blowing and see what happens.
Beautiful. Well, I appreciate you sharing with us. We have our guest speakers on the call, and we have some people trickling in. We have Michael and Marcy. I don't know if you caught that, but we want to wait probably just a couple minutes after the hour to let more people trickle in. I always find people come in, a few minutes after the hour, but we'll honor everybody that's here. We'll try to get started as soon as possible. Again, today's topic, just to presence that, we're live on Facebook. We're recording this call as well, so it'll be uploaded on YouTube as well as it'll be archived on Facebook on the Healing Conversations group page and my personal page. But the topic for today is such a beautiful topic, right? Healing through source energy, your journey to inner joy and connection. So this thought about source energy, source energy, you could say God, the universe, source, that great mystery, that intelligent energy and information that animates everything, that we are that expression of, that we are part of that we are that, right? So it'll be such an enlightened discussion to see how does that translate to getting beyond our stories, right? I feel like Michael and Marcy are really going to delve into that, and I'm not going to try to take over their subject because they have prepared for us such a beautiful, delicious buffet of information and wisdom that's certainly going to open our eyes. And so that's really the purpose of Healing Conversations, to create a space for us to come together, to share perspectives, to connect, to build tribe, to be seen, to express. This is a safe space to feel vulnerable and express yourself, um, and to be seen, and to, if you're open to it, to receive reflection, commendation, guidance. And so really that's the other intention here, is really healing. That's why it's called Healing Conversations. We want to shed the light of awareness through the sharing of all these perspectives, so that we can get beyond our stories and see life differently that is more empowering. So I know for me, I don't know about everybody else here, I find it's very common to get into a very narrow perspective as we do life. We almost get into the state of amplifying what we don't want because our mind starts focusing on resisting what we don't like in our lives. And so thus we get caught in a loop of creating more of what we don't want. Because I don't know about everybody here, it's like when you were thinking about buying that new car or that car, and you get focused on that Toyota, that Lexus, whatever that car is, all of a sudden, guess what? You start seeing that Toyota, that Lexus, and nothing but that car. Same thing in life. Energy flows where attention goes. And so today is going to be an eye-opening discussion that's going to help us refocus ourselves into a more positive and empowering way, so that we can create a reality and experience of life that feels good, that is connected to that source, connected to joy, to peace, to the things that we want to experience in life. So it's 11:03. We have a few more people trickling in. I think let's get the introduction underway. Welcome everybody here that's on the call. Looks like we have Rocio, Sean. Hey Sean, how's it going? Thomas, Celine, Mango, Michael's on the call. A lot of really beautiful people here. So appreciate you being on the call. It's going to be a good one. So again, we have Michael, DiPietro, and Marcey Donnelly on the topic of healing through source energy, your journey to inner joy and connection. I'll read their mission statement. So they work together, and their mission statement is to empower individuals like you to connect with your highest self, embrace your inner wisdom, and overcome the limitations holding you back. They support you in realizing your brilliance and purpose so you can live the life you were born to lead. So, what a beautiful thing, right? Um, Again, we talked a little bit about source energy. What is source energy? Well, I think it's really that intelligent energy and information from which all life is expressed. We could say that is God, the universe, source, intelligent energy. There's so many words, so many religions, so many schools of thoughts, but really it's what animates this character and all our characters and all life, seen and unseen. I really feel like that is that from what everything arises. A little bit about Michael. He has over 20 years experience as a guide in helping people awaken to their authenticity and life purpose. He has a bachelor's degree in engineering, He's a certified master practitioner of NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming. We had a gal last week, Sonia, also another NLP practitioner, helping us appreciate what that's all about, creating empowerment through the way we speak to ourselves and our thoughts. And so he's also a martial arts instructor, a skilled body worker, meditation teacher. He's also spent time in Buddhist and Benedictine monasteries, and he lives here locally in the Bay Area, as well as Marcy. Marcy has over 20 years experience as well in the finance industry, and she now combines her expertise in change management with passion for personal growth. She also co-authored the Insight Guide with Michael. So they have some publications out there, and she is also a certified Reiki master. So wealth of knowledge and wisdom that we have in store for us. So two great speakers. So welcome, Michael and Marcy.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
How would you like to start this? Noe, should we just jump in, or do you want to start with a question, or do you want us to just kind of jump into the topic?
Let's just jump into the topic. We're all excited to hear what you have to say. You maybe start off with your definition of source energy and really guide us through, how connecting to that can guide us to a connection to something. Maybe I don't know where this is going, but I'm imagining connection to something greater than this that opens us up the door to experiencing immense peace and joy and life purpose and connecting to what we're here to do. I'm imagining that that's something along the lines.
So as you said, sources is a name we use for a lot of different things people can call it. But what I want to kind of begin to talk about, or maybe facilitate here a little bit, is a direct experience of it. And so when we're asked to define source, that's the problem, is we're talking about something that can't be defined. So I want you to kind of consider the concept of no concept. What's it like if we're talking about some dimension of our lives, our inner lives, can show up in our environments and in our relationships as well, but a dimension that we can't see, we can't touch, we can't taste, we can't talk about, and we can't define in any way. And yet something inside of us senses this dimension. Something senses that there's something more. But the access point, if we want to begin to experience that in our lives, the access point is beginning to get into quieter and more subtle states of consciousness. And that means, as you talked about earlier, letting the mind calm down. So the mind can be very active, and it generates not only our story, but also our sense of individuality, our individual identity. And so that's something that I think a lot of people get caught in, is they think if they're on a spiritual path and I want to access source energy, I have to do the ego death. I have to kill my individuality. That's not necessarily true. We're here to be individualized and separate in our consciousness. And in source energy, we're also connected. So we have to kind of consider a both and consciousness. We're infinite, we're connected, we're part of something greater, and we're also here to live out our individuality. We don't have to make that go away. In fact, as we access source more and more, and we begin to let that energy infuse, we bring that through our individuality. We still have to live out who we are in the world. So it's not walking around in some pious state, like I've reached the mountaintop and I'm just going to be this kind of guru figure that's walking around. It's actually beginning to let this other dimension enliven who we are, right? And let this other dimension show us where we've come to believe in a false identity of who we are. And that's where all the wounding from childhood, all the patterns, all the triggers begin to run interference over our authentic identity. So I think as we begin to tap source energy, and to me, the best way to do that is to sit quiet and still. We don't even need to call it meditation. And the Western traditions, they call it more contemplation, which is just letting the mind, letting yourself sit in quiet and solitude and creating a sacred space for yourself. A lot of people have very active minds, so I think the more we try to calm the mind, the more the mind kicks up. But just transferring our awareness to our heart center, to our body, and sitting still and quiet in our experiences, they begin to calm down. Everything begins, just like choppy water is happening. But the more we just sit still, everything begins to calm down. And then as calm water, if we imagine a very calm body of water, when it's calm, we can stare down into the depths. We can see more of what's going on beneath the surface. And so I think a lot as we do this work, it's not about always being happy and joyous. That's part of the end result. But sometimes it's also about embracing the pain and the wounding as well, and having a space to do that, where if we're dealing with a wound or something arises, it doesn't mean something's wrong with us. We're still whole and complete as we are. But a lot of times as you sit in silence, as you become more conscious, it's going to push up what's in the way of your authenticity. And so we need to create a space of acceptance and a space of compassion for ourselves and others, and begin to understand that it's the more you embrace your humanity, it's not about getting away from your humanity. It's more about getting into it and embracing it with a space of acceptance for who we really are. So that's a little bit of kind of my orientation to it. But I think what's important is that people begin to not listen to outside authority figures, ironically enough. I mean, I can talk about it and guide you and point you in a direction, but the real key is to begin to follow your own inner authority and your own inner wisdom, and realize that as you begin to sit in silence and access more of this source, that you're a fountain of authority as well. You're a fountain of wisdom, and that you have gold inside of you. And just begin to honor that process and honor who you really are. So I think it's, in our culture, our Western culture, we're very conditioned to find the answer outside of ourselves. If I take the medicine, or I find the ultimate guide, or I just get more money in my bank account, or I find that perfect relationship, or whatever it is, then I'm going to be happy. And most of us know that's not the case. It's really an inside job. And so to me, it comes from that source. It comes from the center of who we are. And in my experience, it doesn't mean I'm walking around blissful all the time. I have some pretty happy moments, but I have some challenging emotions arise as well. But again, the space I'm operating in is more accepting of that. So I think that's one thing source does. It gives us more room in who we are and how we go about life. So that's a little bit of my perspective, and maybe Marcey always has we're very complementary, and she always has a different perspective and just is beautiful. And I want to turn it over to her and just hear a little bit about what she has to say on the topic.
Thanks, Michael. We have a concept in the book about this mountaintop. I mean, through our experiences, we've probably had a situation where we felt at peace and things were what I call like in the flow, where things happen, you know, answers to things that you've been dreading over get resolved. And so it's this place of peace and flow, and it could be a special moment with friends or family, but there's this place, or it could be in church for others, where you just feel at peace and whole. And what I was looking for since my early 20s is that feeling. And I wanted that feeling more and more. And then when Michael and I started working together, we talked about, and the concept in the book is, you have to return to the village. As he said, we're not sitting on mountaintops meditating all day. We have jobs and people and challenging relationships and financial situations, and cultural and community and political issues. And so how I kept searching for, how do I bring that feeling? How do I bring that flow into my daily life? And like I said, I'm a classic, I'm a in the finance industry, so I'm an overthinker by training. It's so being able to work and turn off or turn down that thinking brain when it's not a time that suits me is really powerful. And it was really the path to learn how to integrate that feeling of source and connection with walking on earth. I mean, we have to show up, and this almost makes me feel like it's almost looking at the world through a different set of glasses. And as Michael knows, because these things come up, is, sometimes I'm like, forget it. I have conflict. I want to be in conflict, and I don't want to look at what's causing it. And I don't feel like I want to be peaceful and connected to source. I just need to, stomp and kind of act like a toddler sometime and kind of get stuff out. But through the tools that I've learned, instead of trying to go out and find the answer, whether it be in, another book or a course or purchasing something that's going to make me feel better temporarily, there's practices that I know work for me to sit and kind of regroup and be back in that presence. And the beauty of being connected to source is that I know better ways to act myself. I know how to show up in relationships better. Excuse me, how to show up in my family and community in a different space. So it gives me kind of a practical way to move through the world. And then the secret is that life gets easier. Things resolve in mystical ways. People show up as I looking for answers. Opportunities arise, and I just feel, not that it's self-serving, but I just then feel that I could show up and live out my purpose in a fulfilling way. So that's really, I think, the beauty of this inner work, and it's different for each of us, because each of us has, different calling, a different purpose, and it could be big, it could be what our society would consider a small purpose. But it's so personal, and when you can hold that space of presence, which is the source connection that we're talking about, life just gets easier and really kind of more beautiful. So I think that's been the answer for me. And for many, many years, I was looking outside of myself for the solution, the right motivation, the right job, the right, amount in my bank account that would make me happy. And then I think when I first met Michael, I said, gosh, it always feels like I'm working on something. So something in me is broken. And that's the beautiful reset, is knowing, as we're each showing up on this call, that we are all whole and complete exactly as we are today. It's being curious about those areas that maybe feel like you're not acting, or that your space of that you're kind of behaving from, or situations that you're in. If it doesn't feel aligned, then you could be curious about it, but it's not wrong that we're showing up in our full space, whole and complete as we are. And that's really a beautiful, very healing place to be.
Beautifully said. I couldn't agree more. Those thoughts that you guys are expressing has been something that I feel for, I don't know about everybody else here, but I think it's very common to want to be Mr. or Mrs. Positivity, right? Oh no, I shouldn't feel down. Oh no, I shouldn't feel these low vibe emotions. It's the labeling, right? One of the realizations I've had is that there's nothing wrong with any way to be. Everything is encased in this beautiful expression of what I perceive to be unconditional love. Thus, Michael talked about the spaciousness of connecting to source energy. Constriction is when we're in separation in this character that we are, you know, everything feels like there's less room to operate in. But like Michael put it very beautifully, like creates this spaciousness when we connect to what we really are, to be able to accept anything that arises and not make it wrong. And I really feel like that's what it means to be human, that unconditional love and acceptance of this expression. We are perfect, full, and complete just as we are. Never have we not been. It's really been the stories in our head that has labeled anything less than that perfection, right? So it's a total 180 to go from judgment to full acceptance and to see like really there's nothing to accept and there's nothing to love because we are love itself. So so beautifully said. Any other
And,
thoughts?
part of my journey is when I'm not in that state, I become very curious about where is this interference originating from? So just because we practice acceptance doesn't mean we should not practice consciousness, not practice awareness. I think we should still debunk and search out, am I feeling something that is authentic to my nature, or am I feeling something that's coming from a false belief about who I thought I was? Right. And if the feeling, a lot of times we follow our feelings, but sometimes they can betray us. They can become, if someone is holding a belief that I'm not worthy, right, or I'm not worthy of being loved as I am, let's say, and then they're going to be generating an experience with all these feelings. Well, that's being originated from a lie about who they are. So that if we just let that run its course, yeah, we can practice acceptance, but we also want to deconstruct that false belief because it's not serving us, right? So I try to practice. It doesn't mean I'm walking around in a flow state all the time, but if I'm not there, I stop and I take a look at where is this coming from? Is it coming from my childhood? Am I still holding a false belief that that's causing me to think, feel, and do a certain way that isn't aligned with source, that isn't aligned with who I really am? And so I go through a process of challenging that if it needs to be challenged, right?
And sometimes I think there's just stuff going around. I mean, it sometimes in our culture, and I think in the next couple of months it'll be more and more intense. Sometimes there's just bad things that happen around the world, and we pick up on it, and we're affected by it. So I, for a while, was in the habit of having to analyze every feeling that I had that I felt kind of conflicted with what this flow state felt like, and just by sitting with it, sometimes it would just go away. And other times I realized, gosh, I'm really, upset or anxious or frightened of something that's happening on the other side of the world. And so instead of being connected to, the tragedy of others, that's not helpful. I could be connected in a way where I could do maybe healing and loving things to those around me, or do something active to spread love to areas that are in conflict. But sometimes it would just bring me down. And then I realized it's not helpful for myself or the other people that are suffering. So sometimes these states aren't necessarily big things to shift, or necessarily like created by an act that we've done ourselves.
That's good awareness. I appreciate you sharing that even though we can be in a state of acceptance for this human experience and all the stories and all the beliefs and perceptual filters that really create the world that we're experiencing, that there can be that curiosity, right? That's being expressed to us. Like, this doesn't feel good. Question that and get back to your authenticity, right? Your purpose. Um, as you guys were saying this, I know you said being affected by the world and the suffering and everything. one of the new practices that I picked up that I just would love to, it's side point that I would love to just throw out there is, learning the practice of breathing in the suffering of the world, breathing in the suffering of maybe a friend, family that's going through a hard time, and then breathing out loving kindness. And what that does, we're really sending out a beautiful energy, trying to give some relief from an energetic perspective to those that are in suffering, and to send out something in its place, loving kindness awareness, love. So I just challenge everyone here to maybe take up a simple practice as that, connecting to that source energy, to that expression. I don't know about everybody, but that's just like my thing. I like to, for me, I'm just driven to, that's why there's healing conversations for people to feel better. And so I think we all want to feel better and we want everybody else to feel better. And so why not?
Let's what I'm curious about, maybe we can, with the group today, facilitate a little direct experience of source. It's one thing to talk about it, as we said, but it's another thing to experience it. So I'd like to invite everyone to just notice in the place you are in this particular moment, this time and place, just become present first to your body, and your body is there in gravity. And just notice your body, and notice your body breathing. And let's forget about yesterday and forget about tomorrow and forget about all the things. You can go back to your life, but for this moment, we're just sitting here having this conversation. And just tune into your heart space and begin to feel in the deepest part of your heart your connection and your caring for yourself and the people in your lives, people that really matter to you. And you start to get that sense of, we could call it love, but it's really hard to put a label on it. And maybe there's sometimes a yearning or an aching for more love or more connection. So sometimes we feel desire in that space as well. But even the desire can be a doorway. So whatever's going on for you in your heart of hearts right now, in that deepest place, just let yourself drop in and take a moment out of time to really honor who you are in this moment. Now, the more we can do little moments like this throughout the day, it doesn't have to always be a formal practice we're doing. That's helpful, of course. But the more we can take moments of just checking in, even for a few seconds, few minutes, and begin to listen. It's really almost a listening with the heart, if you will, just like we listen, like you have to listen to hear my words right now. But imagine a listening deeper into the mystery of life, into something we don't even know, but you're going to listen at a deeper and deeper level with your heart and make your heart very receptive. So there's, as Noe said, it's beautiful to put out loving energy. But when we're connecting with source, we need to make ourselves receptive to something. And we need to listen deeper with the heart into the mystery of our being. So I'm just curious if we maybe open up the conversation a little bit. what people notice when you do that. What does that bring up for you? How does that sit for you? What's your own experience of that?
Sean has his hand up.
Thank you, Michael. My experience, I take a lot of moments every day and have been doing so for quite some time. First experience, generally it's eyes closed. So getting past the wonderful visuals of even being sober. But, beyond that, it's just an overwhelming gratitude of just, this is all I need to be doing, really. This is what's important. I use the analogy with friends and with myself a lot of the lizard chilling on the rock, taking in the sun. He's got water and hunts a little for food, and the rest kind of takes care of itself, but he always takes those moments to kind of sun himself and just look majestic and happy. So that's what I'm really trying to get back to. And I've got a complicated life with family business and home and mortgage and all those kind of things that kind of tend to drag me down off of that rock, so to speak. So but yeah, I mean, the main thing is just simplicity. We humans, we're so smart and make it so complicated. And I'm constantly just thinking about how, not truly jealous, but, just jealous of animals and their, perceived from our human minds, simpler minds. And they definitely have a simpler way of life. I think that they're brilliant in ways that we'll never comprehend, possibly. But yeah, that's where it takes me, if that kind of answers your question.
Wonderful. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Any other shares, comments, reflections? Could even be off topic. Maybe there's something that's weighing. This would be a great time to have all us listen and then support. Jessica?
I didn't raise my hand, but just being in the present moment, I just feel like this sense of like peace and just calmness, in my body. So it's just really nice to just take a moment and stop instead of always being on the go. Just be in the present moment and enjoy. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, wonderful. And we could call that peace source energy, right? Because when you're in that and you're feeling that peace, that's your true self. That's the center of your being. And then, yeah, we have our individuality, but if you notice that peace is I always, is it also love? Is it also mystery? Is it and yet it's all of that, right? But I appreciate that sense of calmness that arises. And I think the more we sit in that, the more we allow ourselves that experience, it can change us. It transforms our thinking. It transforms our expression in the world. Thank you for your piece and your contribution.
I have a thought.
Oh, go ahead. No.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say that in that space, you can also slightly disconnect from all of the noise and craziness going on around you, which is a really different perspective to see the world. And very helpful if you find yourself reactive, really reactive. Sorry, no, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say basically the same difference. There's a quote from a book on non-duality, which says, really alluding to the present moment, when we're really being present, it says, what's wrong with right now if you don't think about it? We're really being present, we really get beyond the stories and just look around. See how blessed we are. I mean, it's a beautiful sunshiny day. I went on my garden outside, there's butterflies, little kitty cats outside, blue sky, smelling, all my plants, and just so much appreciation and gratitude. And now I'm here with you guys. Wow. Life is good. We are blessed, right?
Yeah. And so I think that's one of the things that happens, and you start to see things through that different lens, as Marcey said earlier, right? And begin to notice maybe subtleties or things that are always there, but we're just not calling our attention to them. And then Marcey knows me pretty well. She knows I can get kind of intense sometimes. And so I'm not always as calm as I am right now in this moment. I like to share my humanity as well, because it's not about always being peaceful. But what I find is that as I practice more, it's really about letting almost like this energy come through me, right? Can I let go of control and let go of my grip on life, so that this something greater is passing through me, through my physical body. And it really becomes an expression out into the world. So when I'm practicing that, I don't always have to be calm, but people say, well, there's something, I don't know what it is, but there's something about you that I'm sensing. I've heard that a lot, right? And I always know it's the mystery. It's not me, because I don't want to claim credit for that. But can we let that peace, can we let that love, can we let that mystery come through us? Can we make ourselves empty enough and loosen our grasp on things enough to let that come through? It's a work in progress for all of us, I think. Because I still get affected, my big trigger is I get behind the steering wheel, and that's my cue to let out all my pent up anger. And I try to do it in a compassionate way and not take it out on the other drivers. But if someone cuts me off, right? There goes that piece in a moment. But again, I think it's not taking ourselves too seriously. I think humor is also very important. And if I do have a moment of anger, can I let it go just as fast as it came and not be attached to things, and not be attached to even who I think I need to be, and just keep practicing letting this energy inform me, letting myself be that mystery. And it seems the more I do that, the more in a strange sort of way, I don't know who I am. Like I don't have to know who I am anymore. So it's important that we know ourselves and we know that authentic individuality, but it seems as we go more and more into source, we become more and more of a mystery even to ourselves. And I love that experience. I love not having to self-define who I am. It feels very freeing for me. So I just want to invite people to play with that, play with like not having to be who you think you are.
I have a thought as far as that expression. Sometimes I practice this self-care where I question, like, Who am I? Look in the mirror and say, who am I? What am I? Really think about that. Birth, deaths, new iterations, new chapters in who you're being. We can be made anew when we just start seeing past the illusion of how solid we are and all the stories that compose the character that we claim we are, or we're ever evolving or devolving. Surrendering to that great mystery that source creates space for something new to be born. Like this guy speaking now, he didn't exist prior to 2020. There was this gradual personal development going on, but transformation happened all of a sudden. And this guy with all these thoughts and this perspective, like out of nowhere, nobody taught me this. It was just space was created and something new happened. And I can only say is that great mystery from what this thing was sourced from. And it's still, parts of this thing are still dropping off. Things that I thought, well, I am that. Wait a second, not really that. And then just keep dropping off, right? Or not. And anyone is fine. There's no way to be. But beautifully said, like practice saying, who am I? How solid am I? Am I really all these stories that I claim to be? And are these stories serving me? Or are they not serving me?
Mhm. Yeah, the brain, I like to include some neurology sometimes in this because part of it is understanding how our brain works. And when we talk about our identity, the lower part of our brain, our fight or flight, the part that manages our safety and survival, works very hard to always protect the identity. So even if the identity is skewed or false, maybe we're believing something about ourselves that isn't true, that part of our brain works hard to keep that identity in place. And so one helpful tool is to begin to understand how safety and survival is important in transcending an identity. Right? So we have to feel safe. If we don't feel safe, the alert in our brain is always going to be on, and we're going to be fighting to protect even a painful experience. So it's important to begin in your process to take moments of beginning to reference what does safety feel like in your body when you have it, when you feel, because a lot of times we're imagining in the stories, we can imagine the world as a threatening place, and then our brain is going to react the same way as if there's an actual threat on the horizon, and a lot of times there's not. So in anxiety, that's a lot of what's happening is there's the imaginative part of our brain is imagining scenarios that are causing us to feel anxious and insecure about the future. And that's, once you understand your neurology, it helps to begin to kind of short circuit some of that so that the process gets easier.
Beautiful awareness. Go ahead.
One helpful question is checking in, am I safe in this moment? So as an overthinker, it's easy to look out at what's coming up, what are the possible outcomes, what are ways to control and risk manage our lives, but to actually stop and ask, am I safe in this moment? That's a great reset. A really easy one.
Yeah. Because for everyone here, there's not an immediate threat in your environment, right? And so you can begin to say, this is, oh, okay, when there's no threat and everything's calming down and you feel that peace, there's also a sense of safety in them. And then the more you feel safe, the more you can loosen your hold, your control, your needing to be who you think you are versus who you actually are, right? So if I'm feeling safe, I don't have to be in control so much. I don't have to try to manage all this stuff. Like Sean, when you were saying, you got a lot going on in your life, right? But as you begin to reference safety and you'll do what you need to do, obviously, and take care of what you need to take care of, and fulfill those responsibilities. But possibly just loosening the hold on trying to manage it all the time, right? Trying to make sure all the pieces. I went through something like that a couple months ago where I was just had a lot going on, and I was trying to make all these things happen, and it wasn't happening the way I wanted it to happen. And I finally just let go. And I said, you know, enough of this. I'm trying to push the river here too much. And when I let go, I instantly felt a lot better, and then things started working a lot better. So I realized in that experience, I didn't have to be so in control as I thought I did. And I actually got better results when I just loosened my hold on my tasks and my management, and let things take their natural course a little bit. But I think there's a trust in source. You know, we have to trust our center, trust that peace within you, that you're going to be just fine. You're going to be safe if you practice that loosening of control.
Michael, would you say that our need to control is really a trauma response? That maybe as adults we're really have these perspectives that we adopted at early age in our development, maybe even karmic, that filter our experience of life, so that we're in this fight, flight, freeze, fawn response mode, and we don't know what we don't know because this is just normal for us. That we're seeing tunnel vision and the way we're interacting with the world, and we're always in this heightened state of awareness to protect ourselves from dangers that don't exist, because we're projecting the past into our present and then worrying about the future. Anxiety, depression, all these expressions of needing to control because of the trauma.
I'd say that that's possible in some cases. I don't want to put that overlay on everyone, right? Because in some cases it could not necessarily be coming from trauma, but just adaptation, or it could just be a personality trait, right? So it could arise from trauma, but not everything is trauma based, right? So some of it is just the natural adaptation of how we had to learn to adapt to our particular upbringing. And that can be challenged. But I don't, you know, I think trauma has it has more weight and gravity to it, and not everything has to be from a place of trauma and heaviness and difficulty, right? But it very well could be, right? So I think it's up to each of us as individuals to search out where is this coming? Did I have trauma in my childhood? Is that sense of control coming from my response to that? Or is this simply just a learned response that I could maybe more easily shift? Right. And that's what I try to encourage people to do, is try not to live by a hard or fast rule, but listen within and determine and discern what's true for you. Right? What's your truth?
Well said. I know we're running down to the last 11 minutes of our call. Just would like to maybe open it up for anybody who has any reflections, any questions, any thoughts, anything that you would like to express. This would be a great time to get a couple questions in.
No questions. That means we did a good job of explaining things.
I'm always happy to speak, and I really like what you guys are putting down and everything. One thing that came up for me that I thought was interesting is like trying to get down to those spots that bring me anxiety and kind of figure out where they come from. And some of it I contribute to, a lot of it, social media, upbringing, time and people. But one is, being sarcastic sometimes, like, say Napoleon Dynamite, he's like, God, like he's so dramatic. And I find myself in my internal, like being so dramatic over like such a small thing that I'm not even serious about. And like catching those moments and actually seeing and feeling and being self-aware of my heartbeat and my breath and everything in these little moments, I'm going, okay, this sarcasm really isn't serving you. And, sure, with another person, it might be funny to like, I don't know, spill a drop of coffee and you're like, oh my God, and I'm just kind of a joker like that. But that's something that's really come across for me that I'm starting to watch. And then I really like the driving analogy because I drive a lot. And one of my favorite things is everyone is the guru when you know how to listen, that Ram Dass said and been said by other teachers. And so I'm just constantly taking that into the vehicle and living here in the Monterey Bay and it being summer, there's so many lessons, wonderful lessons. And, a lot of them show me, are you in a hurry? Like, and, preparing and being ahead of time to almost everything I do takes away so much stress. So it's like, say I have a 5:30 yoga class, I just leave at my house at 4:45. It only takes me 7 minutes to get there and find parking. So yeah, I didn't really have a specific question. I'm sure I could come up with a few and we have limited time. Want to let someone else speak, but I'm always happy to chop at the dead air. Thank you.
One of the things you can do, I used to be, I can be as well, very dramatic, and I love my drama. And so I tried to be more conscious and to act it out consciously and to poke fun at it.
Sure.
And like not take it too seriously, just like you did, like, oh God, right? Like, I think that's a super practice, is just like really holding ourselves and our foibles lighter like that. So I commend that, and I can really relate to that as well.
You were talking about his duality, and I thought it had come up about identity and duality. And it's fun to play around with as we're talking about not taking any of this too seriously, especially with, the lightness of source energy is looking at a personality trait that you feel is part of your identity and looking at the other side of that. What's the opposite of that? And that's really fun to play with. And for me, I had an experience of, the fact that I like structure. I like things a certain way. And so to realize, like, how do I behave when things are completely unstructured? What comes up for me? How can I accept? And Sean, you're reminding me, like, I used to try and go through, and I still do, it still comes up, trying to quote unquote fix, like, oh, that wasn't a very conscientious way when you're tearing someone apart on the street because you think it's funny. That's not very conscientious. But instead of like, oh gosh, now I have to go work on it, and why do I do that, and getting into that spin, now you have two things to solve: beating up on yourself and then also wanting to change that behavior. So it's like accept, notice, accept, be curious. Let's see the opposite. Yes, I could be super serious, and sometimes I just don't want to be serious anymore. I want to be playful and light. And are there ways to do it where it's not at others' expenses? And so kind of playing around with identity and duality is also fun and could be challenging and really insightful as a practice if you haven't done it.
Right? Laughter's the best medicine, right? And I
Yeah.
also feel like suspending judgment, being present and suspending judgment. I keep going back to, and I know I didn't come up with this, I read this somewhere, and I'm not going to say exactly the same, but it's that Chinese proverb. But the old man in the village who has a son who goes in the forest, who finds a horse, he comes back to his dad, and all the villagers come and praise the dad. Your son found a horse. How lucky you are. The old man says, well, I don't know, maybe. We'll have to wait and see. The next day, the son goes out with the horse. falls down, breaks his back. All the villagers come to the old man and say, "You're the unluckiest man in the village." The old man says, "I don't know, we'll have to wait and see." The next day, the army comes recruiting all the young men to go to war, to surely die. And all the villagers go to the old man and say, "You're the luckiest man in the village." He says, "I don't know, we'll have to wait and see." So can we be a little light? We don't know. Can we just wait and see? And just be present? With a little humor. Why not?
Well, this is a great conversation, and since we're nearing the end, it's a little primer for Marcey and I, because we have a retreat coming up at the end of this month, and it's in the area. It's at Mount Madonna Retreat Center, and it's July 26th to the 28th. So it's a weekend retreat. And the title of it is The Power of Source Energy. So this discussion is kind of helping us as a little primer getting ready for that. We have, it's limited to 25 people. We have about 18 people signed up so far. So we have, about 7 slots left. But if anyone's interested in diving in deep, and it'll involve meditation, some movement, group discussion, journaling, time in nature. So, and all the meals are provided and lodging is provided. So it's a great opportunity to really deepen into source. If it really resonates with any of you, we have a few spots left for that.
Do you guys want to put in the information for people to be able to go directly to that on the chat?
Sure. I'll put in our website. It's under our events, and there's also a coupon code for another few days. I'll add that to the chat. The coupon, our website is loveguides.us. So, and I'll add this all, but www.loveguides.us. And then under events, we have multiple upcoming events, but there's a coupon code SOURCE50, and that will give you $50 off registration. So I'll update that. Thanks for mentioning.
Yeah, so and there's a lot of resources on our website, different things that support. We have an e-course for anyone that's dealing with anxiety. So a lot of different things on the videos. You can just check it out if all this resonates with you. And we're just here as a support, and we really want people to, as Noe said in our mission, we want people to be living their best life, to really be breaking through a lot of what's holding you back, and letting this beautiful source inform us from the inside out.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today and all your wisdom. I just think maybe can you do a brief recap on what are some easy ways that we can incorporate in our daily self-care to really connect to that source energy? I know you talked about a few things. Can you just maybe recap that for us to drive the point home?
Sure. And the most important thing is taking moments to sit in silence and to reference the present moment. So just sitting still, even if it's 5-10 minutes out of your day. It helps to have a consistent time if you do in the morning or the evening. But any time of day where, especially if you're feeling stressed, just go take a moment, take a breather, and just breathe and be still for a moment and let things begin to calm down. So the more you practice that, the more source begins to inform you. Begin to reference your safety. Your safety is very important in all of this, and understanding that your brain sometimes is running programs, so you can go through a process of practicing acceptance and spaciousness, and at the same time challenge and debunk anything that seems to be getting in the way of that's not serving you anymore. So I think those are some of the main tools, but to me I also resonate with movement. So having some sort of movement body practice, we didn't talk about that, but I think the body is really important, and getting our body healthy, the foods we eat, how we process emotions. So movement is really helpful for me. I can sometimes be a little stagnant. So I like to dance. I like to go on hikes. I like to get movement and just get my energy flowing again. And I find that very useful.
Thank you so much again, Michael, Marcy. Appreciate you guys for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here with us. Again, thank you everybody for being here, for your participation, for your energy. Appreciate you guys, love you guys, and can't wait to see you guys next Wednesday. We have another exciting guest speaker, and reach out if you have any questions. I think I also put their social media sites early on in the chat. I'll go ahead and repost that now as well. It's the Loving Presence Embodiment for both Facebook and Instagram. Are those still the best ways to connect with you guys, even on social media?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you everyone. Until next time. Have a beautiful
Thank you
rest
very
of your
much.
week.
What a pleasure to be here. Thank you all, and keep up the great work, everyone.
Great, thank you.